Game planning is one of the most complicated and tedious things to do as a football coach. And in this video, we're going to show you simple ways that you can improve your game plan, both from a defense perspective and an offense perspective. Let's check it out. All right, and there's actually one more thing that we're going to show you before we actually get started to the game planning piece of it. I think this makes a huge difference, and this is something that I started to do, I believe it was 3 years ago, that I at least wanted to show you that I think it can help. So behind me, I actually have 3 monitors. If you only have 2, that's perfectly fine. But I think if you're working off of 1 monitor, it really does slow down your workflow. And of course, on Saturdays and Sundays, like, you're trying to get back as much time as you can for your family and just to relax, right? So if you look right here over my right, over this shoulder right here, I have Hudl up. I have my scout cards up, which I'm going to draw. And then my third monitor here, I have my game plan, which I can then drop. Obviously, you don't need 3 monitors, but I highly recommend you get at least 2. These, I think, both behind me were $100, and then this little one here, I think it was on Amazon for like 70 or 60 bucks. It wasn't too expensive. So if you are interested in that, just let me know, and I could try to dig up where I got that off of Amazon. But again, it's just super easy to have this workflow where you could have one on each screen. This little one here, I can actually take with me to the office. It folds up and it plugs in via USB-C. So highly recommend to do that. But I at least wanted to show you that before we actually jump into the offense and defensive game plan, because I know Danny has the same setup back at his place, and it just makes everything a heck of a lot easier. So let's get into it. All right, this first segment here is going to be more of a general Hudl talk, and then we're going to roll it over into defensive talk. So the very first thing you're going to look at is, of course, just getting in data entry. And I think this is one of the worst parts about coaching football, especially at a small school, is just the data entry part. It's one of the things I personally dread. All of us coaches take turns adding in each piece. But if you don't have Hudl Assist, I highly recommend you go fundraise on how to do it. If you don't know how to fundraise to get that money, I'll link a video in the description below. We did a video with Coach Kenny Simpson. He did a phenomenal job just on different ways you can market your program to make. I think he made over $2 million, or raised over $2 million, excuse me. So if you need fundraising ideas, we'll link that in the description below. But go, I think it's $1,000. Go fundraise to get it. It's going to save you so much time. You look at all of these columns in the very bottom. Most of them are filled out by the people running Hudl Assist, so it just makes our job a heck of a lot easier. Okay, so starting at the bottom, we're going to look at the columns, and this is the columns I like for defense. Again, my thought going into Saturdays and Sundays, because it is such a short week and you need to get things going, is I don't want paralysis by analysis, okay? Meaning, I just need the data that's going to affect the game directly, that I as a play caller can make a direct impact on the game, but also too that I'm not going crazy on a Saturday or Sunday morning trying to take all this data and try to make sense of it. So I've narrowed it down to just a few things when I start to break down Hudl that I think can help you. It is a little bit simple in the terms of this video is not going to make your head spin. I've tried to dumb down the process as much as I can. It works for us, so we're just going to keep rolling with it, okay? So very first thing, as I mentioned, you see all the columns here: offensive formation, offensive play. I have a touch chart. Touch chart is just who's touching the football, and you'll see later on when we talk about our launch chart, the touch chart really does come into play. But you can see here, number 5 was a primary ball carrier for this team, so you're going to see his name light up the touch chart. Protection, we just use our call protection, okay? So if it's a sprint out, you'll see they don't throw the ball for a while here. Let's go. Okay, so you'll see 91, 68. So I'm just using our language, okay? And I think that's the best way to do it, because you can get all of your coaches in to edit everything as long as they're all using the same language, okay? If I'm calling quads left, I don't know, something random like Viper left, and we're all just importing different names, we're not on the same page. So we always try to use our offensive terminology, because both of our staffs coach offense and defense, so it's just easier for us to do it that way. Play direction, Hudl fills in for you. Gain loss, they fill in. Personnel, this team didn't really change personnel much, so this box is going to be essentially empty. We just felt for this game we didn't need to go crazy trying to fill it out, because they had the same personnel on the field. That's the beauty of playing small schools. And then clinic tape and then motion, that's going to affect us. This team didn't motion at all in these games. And then the last one being motion, but this team didn't motion at all this game, so we just end up leaving it blank, okay? But that's our columns, okay? And if you go to actually my columns here, this down arrow, and you click this pencil icon, you can choose whatever columns that you want. Okay, they have offense, defense, special teams, all these pre-designed columns, and then in the top right, manage fields, or if you want to add your own. I think these are some of the custom ones I have with, we had loaf, clinic tape, protection, and then of course the touch chart is also a custom one I put as well. Okay, so that's just the bottom half and the data entry portion of how we do it. And again, there's so much more data you can put into this, but it just works for us and our staff. We're able to easily get in. One coach has the offensive plays, one has the formations, and another coach has the protections and the emotions. And we just go through, everyone does the data entry part of it, and then we just start to collaborate and game plan together. Now we're looking at this right side here, and all I'm looking for are there any blaring weaknesses between their down and distance, and are they tipping off anything? Okay, so I'm not going to bore you in this video, but being able to click in 1st and 10, what are the situations that we're getting? And if you look down here for the run and pass, we can see that they're heavy on run. Okay, 81%, 19. If you go to 2nd down, they're 100% run in this game. 3rd down, and then 4th down. So I'll go through every single down, I'll go through every single distance, and then I'll just take a peek at the field zone. So what are they doing on 1st down when they're backed up? Okay, when they're in midfield and they are in 4 down territory, what are they more likely to do? Okay, so I highly recommend going through these and just seeing what the coach is thinking. Okay, so these are more coach tendencies, the down and distance. The field zone is where his comfort level is. Is he throwing the ball on 2nd down when he's in a 2nd and long situation because he feels uncomfortable and needs to get that 1st down? How aggressive is he by midfield? Okay, is he playing that maybe he has to get past his 45-yard line in order to go for it 4 downs, the opponent's 45-yard line? Like, where is that zone? So that's why I like to take a look at the field zones. But the down and distance is really where you're going to live as far as what you're getting run pass wise. But they have all these data points down here. Again, high schools, just because the hashes are wider, a lot of teams will play hash to hash. I know one team that we play, they run pretty much everything to the field. So any blitz that we have or any other stunts that we have will be to the field. And it just happens to work out that way. And they haven't changed in about 5-6 years. Next, we're going to talk about is the formations. And in my opinion, this is the most important column in this entire Hudl set. And the reason for that is I spend a lot of time on formations because I don't want our guys to be paralyzed when a formation comes out and they haven't seen it or we haven't practiced it a lot. Like, I need them to be able to see something, know that they've seen it in practice 100 times, and then go from there. So I usually take, if it's a team like this that only has 6 formations, I'll take the 6 formations, but I'm really looking at the top 5 formations. And what are the top 5 formations that the team's getting into? And then what are the plays they're running out of those top 5 formations? You can really hone in on what those 5 plays are, run and pass, out of these 5 formations, and hammer that early on in the week, and then start to add on the exotic stuff when you feel like your kids are really getting it. So first thing, when I'm looking at run plays, okay, I'm looking at the scheme itself. And I'm thinking, how is it going to play against the different fronts that we run? So we're a 4-2-5 hybrid where I can get into my 3-down stuff. So how can I take QB sweep where they're just running essentially outside zone to the left? How's that going to hurt us in XYZ defensive formation? Okay, they're running power where they're pulling a guard, they're running toss, they're running GH counter. So if I can take their top 5 run plays and then be prepared for those top 5 run plays, it puts our guys in a lot better position to know that in certain formations, they like to run these plays, and then we can either spill, box, whatever we're doing with our defensive structure, and they understand what's coming. So again, we build up the formation and then we layer the run plays on top of that formation. So if you're looking here at this set right now, their top run play, QB sweep left, QB sweep right, power left, toss left, GH counter. So I'll take those 5 run plays and we'll rep those in our inside run periods. Our defensive line is going to practice cross-facing a down block, spilling a puller, doing all the things necessary that when they see power or counter, we know exactly what to do. And then our DNs will get into a position where they can fight the reach block and make sure that they don't get pinned on any outside zone. You see how this all starts to take shape from a practice plan perspective just by looking at, okay, top 5 formations and top 5 run plays. Now looking at the pass element is we're going to take their top 5 pass plays, okay, and try to take those away from them. And if you look here, this team didn't throw that much, but when they did, again, we're going to use our offensive terminology. So I'm going to take the top 5 pass concepts, I'm going to chart them up, and I'm going to make sure that players know exactly, when they're, let's say the top 5, I mean, you don't see it here, but okay, flood. If they're running flood and we're in quarters, my Jack can't be fast to the flat because he can get the ball thrown over his head, right? So we got to make sure that we're prepared for those situations that where we're vulnerable with their pass concepts if we're in certain coverages, okay? Every coverage has a weakness. We need to know the weaknesses as we're going into it. So that's how I paint the picture to the kids. And when I script up practice, like I want to put us in those situations that we may be at a disadvantage. That way, when the Jack or the outside star, nickel, whatever it is, runs, he sees that short out, he knows, okay, I can play in between because I'm getting flood that's coming, and that way I can hop down onto the short out that's coming out. Okay, so that's just one example of how we would practice and layer the pass on top. Next thing we're looking at is the protection. I try to carry at least 4 to 5 blitzes every week that I really like. Again, just to try to simplify it for myself and for the kids. So I'll look at the protection and see what we got. In this game here, they ran a ton of sprint out protection and max protection. Okay, so in my head, I'm thinking, okay, could I cut off to the back? And if I do want to drop 8, we can just drop 8 as well, because knowing they're going to max protect, we can just cover on the back end. Okay. So again, as a coach, I try to make it as easy as I can for myself and for the kids to know that, hey, in certain down and distance situations, we like X, Y, and Z blitzes. They know who to cover. They've seen it a million times in practice, and it just makes everything easier for everybody. Okay. Last piece we're going to talk about, and we're actually going to jump over to it, is what I call a launch chart. This has been super helpful for me. I got this from a coach, I believe it was 2 to 3 years ago, and we actually have my quarterback do it. And the reason he does it, he's a football nerd. He asked if he could do it. I said, sure. So he would meet me on Saturdays. He would already have it done. He would go through every single game. So let's jump over to the launch chart and take a look at why it's useful. All right, now jumping into the launch chart, this is what we use on a weekly basis. Again, we had our quarterback that made the sheet up last week. Here's an example sheet I made just so you guys can see it. Again, it's not pretty whatsoever. I'm very much aware of that, but it does the trick, at least from a visual perspective. I show this to the kids too. So we take a little bit of what we learned from Hudl and what we're seeing on our own while filling out this launch chart, and we kind of combine them together. So when I'm showing the kids from a past perspective what we're looking for this week, we'll show them this chart. So just to go through it quickly, in the top left, you'll see the QB info. Okay, and this gives the players an idea of what they're getting. You know, how tall is he? Is he 6'3", 6'4"? You know, that way there's no surprises when they show up. They don't see a 6'5", 210-pound kid and they're going, wait a minute, I wasn't prepared for this. So they know exactly what they're going to get. What hand is he? Right hand, left hand? Of course, that can play a factor on which side he throws. And then the best information I think you get out of this chart is just the seconds to throw the football. And this is how we actually design most of our blitzes too. So if you're more than 2 seconds to throw the football, 3 to 4 seconds, then we're going to try to get after you, okay? But if you're a catch and throw type team where you're throwing 2 seconds or even 1 second, and it's taken for, very quickly for the ball to get out, there's no sense in blitzing you because we'll never get home, okay? So we're going to be more apt to drop 8. So what we do is we take this information in this launch chart, and we actually have, like I said, our quarterback ran this, or a coach will run it, but we have on the timer 1,000, 1,000. Okay, we'll mark that down. So if you see here, all this information on the left-hand side is all based off of where this quarterback threw the football. So he threw 48 times within the box, meaning caught the football and was in the box throwing it 48 times. And you're not going to see, he's not much of a rollout passer. Okay, I think these 5 passes in the 3 games that we had were him forced out of the pocket on some middle pressure, right? So from a defensive coordinator perspective, we can see where this quarterback's throwing the ball. So if he is a pocket passer, we can then blitz the middle. If he's someone that likes to roll to his right all the time whenever he feels pressure, well, we can bring middle pressure and outside pressure. Okay, so this is where I'm starting to formulate my blitz plan based off of how many seconds it is to throw the football, but also where is the quarterback throwing the ball in relation to the pocket. Again, we'll take a look at the top pass plays and we'll just insert them into the bottom left. That way the kids can see it. And then one other aspect that I have the person that's filling out the launch chart do is who are they targeting the most? And you can see here there's a huge discrepancy of number 8 being targeted 28 times as opposed to number 10 being targeted 11 times. Okay, so if you have, let's say you're running split field coverage and they're always going to put him in the X receiver sold out in a 3-by-1, well, we got to give him extra attention. We can't just play solo coverage and pray that our number 1 corner is just better than him, because if this receiver is pretty good, it's going to be for a long day. Okay, so this is where we're starting to take this data and understand, like, do we need to give more attention to number 8 in this instance by putting an extra body over the top of him, or putting our best player to mirror him wherever he goes. Next is just our miscellaneous. So we'll just put in completions. How many interceptions is he throwing? Is he taking a lot of sacks? How many times is he scrambling? Again, run pass percentages and how many times they're throwing out a certain formation. So this is kind of where we'll data dump everything and we'll show it to the guys. So this is our launch chart. Again, it's been super useful. I highly recommend you steal this. Again, we'll leave this in the description below so you can just download it right from here. But that is, again, how we game plan on defense and kind of our workflow and how we go through everything. That way we can make it, A, we can save as much time as possible. I think that's the biggest key. And then B, we can make sure that it's a game plan that the coaches believe in, the kids believe in to ultimately win on Friday. So now let's switch it over to Danny where he's going to be talking about an offensive game plan.
All right, getting into the offensive portion, I just want to go over some quick tips on how to game plan on the offensive side of the ball. The first part is going to be just don't overlook the players and just focus on the scheme. The players are what's going to win you the game. So don't go crazy on just focusing on specifically what do you have to do to win this game, right? Schematically, do I have to draw the perfect play in order to win this game? No, normally most of the time you don't. Your first thing you should be looking for is who can I attack? Who is my best player on offense? Who is their worst player on defense? And how can we attack them? Can we attack them formationally? Do we have to use specific motions in order to get him in the position to get my best player on his worst player? But don't overlook it and just go and focus on only schematics. Focus on number one, who's their worst player? Who's my best player? Keep it simple as that, right? Don't overthink it too much in the beginning. Number two is going to be drawing your base offense versus their base defense. Just based on their techniques, based on their leverage in the back seven, you want to be able to see visually, not just on the film itself, but draw it out with the X and O's and be able to see everything on the field and be able to draw up their base defense against all of your base formations. And for this part of the process, I actually love using Pro Quick Draw. It's a plugin for PowerPoint, and it's super easy to use, and it's made my game planning process so much easier. Just to show you a few examples here, what I love to do with Pro Quick Draw is I love to get my base formations up against their specific defenses and what I think they're going to be running that week. So a couple things here, just this 4 layout here that I can give to my guys, I can show to my quarterback. This is how I believe they're going to be lining up to us that week. All right, these 4 specific looks for these 4 specific formations. And then from there, that is where I get my play ideas from, because now I see, okay, this is exactly how I believe they're going to line up to it. From there, how can I design the play from the schematic part of it? Yes, I already know about the Jimmies and Joes like I just talked about, but now from the schematic standpoint, how can I draw up the best play to attack this defense? And you want to be able to draw up the top 3 looks that you'll be able to see with each formation. So if you end up getting trips and you see that they're showing multiple different types of coverages versus trips, all right, what's the number 1 coverage that they ran most consistently with trips? That's going to be my number 1 that I focus on. The other 2 can just be, okay, I have to prepare just in case. So that can be on your call sheet saying, hey, they're in this specific coverage, the number 2 and number 3 coverage. Okay, now I have my 2 answers on my call sheet just in case they do show up in that coverage. But for the main purpose of the game planning part, you want to make sure if their main coverage is going to be a cover 6 or some sort of trip specific coverage, I want to have my answers to that specific coverage. And with Pro Quick Draw, if you already have your playbook in here, you can just consistently take those same formations, plug them into a 4 slide layout like this is, and then also just adjust the defense based on how they align that week. Along with drawing the defense, they have great templates like this that you can include in your game plan where you can show specifically how they're playing each look, as well as what the specific coverage is, what the front is, and then what the formation is. So you can see, all right, X and O wise, this is how they're going to be playing us in our trio formation here. From there, now I know, okay, this is going to be their base look against our trio formation. Now I can draw up a play that's going to be beating this coverage based on their base coverage that we're going to be seeing this week. Now, the second part in the game planning process, we already see how they lined up versus our base 3x1 formation. Now, this example here is going to be a 3x1 nub set. And this is where I start to get creative with the game planning process and see what plays I like versus coverage. So if I'm in a 3x1 nub set, I like to say, hey, I want that X to go on a post, and I think we can beat that safety just based on his pre-snap leverage and his pre-snap position. So my idea number 1 is on the sheet right here. Now I have to take it and I have to include it into our 7-on-7 chart. So all these plays are going to be our 7-on-7 chart, and these are going to be my top plays for the week. So if I see now the play number 2 here, I see that's going to be my specific trio beater that we just talked about. Now I have to incorporate into 7-on-7, see how I like it versus 7-on-7. Then if I like it in 7-on-7, then I progress it into the game. So now taking that and then putting it into the game, we see some game film here where we're going to be reading that safety. Safety comes down low. We end up hitting that post over the top. Right. So that all started with just seeing, okay, I'm going to draw out specifically how each play is or each formation lines up versus their base defense. And then I end up taking the base defense. What plays do I like versus base defense? And what do I think we're going to be end up seeing? Then number 3 is putting it in action in 7-on-7, making sure that practice goes well, making sure that the look is consistent in practice and the play is consistent in practice. And then number 4 is just executing in the game. And the beauty of using Pro Quick Draw is that I can also just take this from PQD when I do it in PowerPoint, and I can also upload everything right into Hudl. So with these templates here, I can see the trips coverage that they come out in, then take that same template, and then I can find that specific play that I like versus that week. So I can break it down. It's going to make the game planning process a lot easier when you can take everything and then put it right back into Hudl, just so you have a centralized source and you don't have to go specifically back to your computers. So I definitely recommend PQD for this to make your game planning more organized. It's going to make the game planning process a lot more simple for you. And once everything's back in a Hudl, it keeps everything centralized and it makes it a lot easier to stay organized with the entire staff. The next part is just knowing your situations, right? Situational football is a good amount of the play calls you're going to be making, right? A lot of my play calls on my play sheet are all situations. So as I'm looking down, I'm seeing we're on the left hash. It's 3rd and 2. What's the play that I saw that's going to work the best? Right. And as you go through the game planning process, notice what they're doing on those down and distance plays. So if they're just their base first down or P and 10 defense, okay, they're always going to come out, or they're blitz heavy on first down or blitz heavy on P and 10. Okay, I know the blitz heavy on P and 10. I need to have my best blitz pickup plays, or I need to have my best man beaters on those plays. If you notice on 3rd down and long, they're going to be playing, or 3rd down and 6+, they're going to be playing drop 8. Okay, I need to have my best drop 8 beaters on those plays. But just know each situation. So, for example, 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down and long and short. All right, all those situations with 3rd down and long, 3rd down and short. 3rd down is your money downs. You want to really make sure you take advantage of the money downs and making sure that number 3rd down is going to be the most important, as well as the red zone stats are going to be the second most important as well. All right, you want to make sure you're having as much success in the red zone as possible, and you want to see what yard line it is that they change their defense. So if they're normally a full 4 cover 3 team, for example, and then all of a sudden you get to the red zone, now they become a man coverage cover 1 press team. Okay, what's the yard line at that changes? All right, when do they switch from a cover 3 team to now a cover 1 team? Is it the 20-yard line? Is it the 15-yard line? Figure that out in the game plan, because once you get to the 15-yard line and you call a cover 3 beater, you want to make sure, okay, put myself in the best situation. If I'm at the 15, I'm not going to call a cover 3 beater because I know that they're going to be in man coverage at that time. And then differentiate between the red zone defense and if there's a change in the goal line defense. Did they substitute D lineman? Do they add an extra linebacker? Do they take off a DB, right? So find that personnel that they're in the goal line defense and see if that changes from their red zone defense at all. Number 4 is analyze how they adjust to motion. Motion is going to give you a ton of answers with specific coverages, yes, but also how they're going to be react to that motion and where the weakness is within the defense after that motion happens. So if you notice that you're in 2x2 and then you're going to motion across, from there, if you notice those safeties rolling and that backside safety ends up rolling back, and you know, okay, I'm probably going to have something on that backside because they're giving up that rotation or that edge defender on that backside. So you can attack backside depending on the roll. If they don't move at all, you know, hey, I have some numbers to that play side because they're not adjusting to the motion. From there, okay, now I can call a jet sweep. I can call plays that attack that strong side because now we have numbers. They're not adjusting to the motion. Right. That's one of the easiest ways to get numbers in the spread offense is to motion across, shift across, right? Have an H back in the backfield. Just a simple 2-yard shift can gain you the advantage. Have it be 3x1 and they don't adjust. And then from that point, they're at a disadvantage and you have a number advantage. And another way that you can do it is just by starting an empty, right? You start an empty. If they're a man coverage team, you can start an empty, bring the running back in. Okay, are they switching? Are they in man? Are they in zone? That's a good indicator. And even if you can just show empty just to show it, they have to have an empty check and they have to assume that you're going to run something at empty. So you can always start empty, come back in your normal 3x1 set, and then just run what you normally were going to run. But it's going to tell the quarterback a couple different answers, whether it was man, whether it was zone. And lastly, this is my game plan install sheet. So as I figure out my game plan, I also have another sheet, and all of this stuff, I go into a huge deep dive into game planning and how I break down specific players, specific linemen, specific linebackers, all that, and also just ways to attack specific coverages within our offensive coordinator university. So make sure you go over. We'll have that link in the description below. Just make sure you check that out. If you guys want to really, really deep dive into game planning, that's where that source will be. So now this is my game planning sheet that I'm going to show my players. So this is going to be pretty much everything they need to know for this week within the play calls. So if any of my play calls are not on the sheet, I'm not calling them that week. All right. I know I have a good amount of pass concepts here, but a lot of this stuff is just very simple verbiage, and it just kind of tags off of another concept on these for these calls here. But we're essentially going to break it down by just the focus and the goals this week. So if we notice that the linebackers are very aggressive coming downfield, we're not going to get too far into our double teams with our zone schemes. We want to make sure we get off the double teams and be able to get those linebackers coming downfield. We want to be able to, for example, like these are just some things I threw in. We're going to attack quick game and then be who we are, right? A couple defensive keys. This is where I usually put their best players, and then specifically how their players play in our attack point to them. So their defensive ends are very aggressive coming up field. From then and there, I want to make sure we attack with more gap schemes. And then as well with our quarterback read, we know we're probably going to be giving the ball a little bit more this week just because their defender's not getting down the line. We don't have a chance to pull. But he'll be reading that throughout the week. But that's going to tell essentially our scout guys how to react for the week as well. So I like to have the best player and also our attack point on this page as well in this section. So if number 14 is their best player, number 17 is the player that we're going to try and attack. So the right corner, he's going to be our attack point. He's the one I want to get my best route runner on. And I want to make sure that we're game planning towards the weakness and we're really attacking him throughout the game and really finding him just in case he's not at right corner. We need to be able to flip just in case he is at left corner. This is just a simple breakdown of the defense that we saw. I print out all 4 of them so they can visually see it. This is just to label it out just to make sure everyone is able to write it down. So if we see a 4-2-5 cover 16 with 2x2, and then we're getting a 4-4 cover 3 check when we're in 3x1, 3 tech to the field, cover 0 with the safety low. So that's one of our keys. When the safety rolled down and was stacked up behind that outside backer, we knew that outside backer was coming. So that's when we knew that we're getting some sort of cover 0. And then we also want to make sure we're preparing for the 3-3 stack. It's something we saw earlier in the year. So this is something that we can throw in as well, just to make sure that we're prepared and not sitting there, oh, they haven't ran 3-3 stack all year. But we want to be able to throw a couple plays in inside run, throw a couple plays in team, just so we're prepared for the worst. On the right side here, I like to write defensive notes. So specifically notes pertaining to specific positions. So O-line here, we had 1-foot splits this week. The H-back had normal counter rules. So I like to essentially just put all specific notes here for these positions. And then the skills positions, I like to put notes as well. And then whatever I'm installing that week, this is going to be labeled out right here. Down here, this is going to be our personnel section, so it has every position labeled out, and then I have all the names here of these guys going across. So with each personnel, if that's going to change for this week, I want to make sure that I'm updating this throughout the week, making sure that everyone knows where you're supposed to be, and whenever I call out Rhino, whenever I call out Bengal, the right guys are going in. And then getting into this bottom part here, this is really where the game plan happens. This is where I can put a formation, a motion, a run game, an RPO, or I can put a formation, motion, protection, pass game. This is essentially how I go through and I put together my play calls based on what I have on here. So I have another sheet, and I go over it in the Offensive Coordinator University, where it labels on my entire offense. I have like 10 rows, and it looks just like this. So I have the formations, every motion, run game, run tags, everything for my entire offense. From there, I see pretty much the top 15 to 20 formations that I like this week. I'll take those, copy and paste the ones I like, and then put them in this sheet here, just so I don't have my entire offense. Everyone and all my players can look at this sheet and say, hey, you know what? I know what deuces is. I know what white stack is. I know all these formations. I know all these motions, and it simplifies it because now they don't have to worry about knowing so many different things within the offense this week. They need to say, hey, I need to know these 15 formations. I need to know these 5 run games. I need to know these 5 tags. So it's not going to be anything crazy where I have to go and they have to know 10 run tags. No, I'm going to simplify it specifically for the game plan, bring it down, these 5 run tags, these 4 protections, these 9 pass concepts. So it's just simplifying the offense where now they have to specifically focus on this. And these are where the questions come from, because now they can look at this and say, hey, coach, what is flick motion again? I just forget. Okay, now on Monday, you can go over that, as opposed to when you call it in a play on Wednesday afternoon and they don't know it and you're reaming them for that. No, they should know, because on Monday they should be looking at this and saying, hey, flick motion's in this week. I want to make sure that we know flick motion's in. Anyone have any questions on flick motion? From there, people should know. So when you get to the calls on Wednesday and Tuesday, you already have these answers in already.
And once again, just make sure you check out the Defensive Coordinator University below if you're a defensive coach, to help you improve your game plan.
Make sure to also check out the Offensive Coordinator University course, which is going to take a deeper dive into the game planning process.
We hope that helped you with your game planning process. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out this video right here next. We'll see you next time.